So yeah, Hub Call Hero are celebrating companies that's done fantastic work within the region. And today it is Welsg Interactive, so thank you so much for coming along. I really appreciate it. So first of all, can you tell me what's the origin of Welsg Interactive and how have you grown over the years?
Do I need the mic or? I'm loud enough. So me and Rich met back in 2010. So I was a hardened industry veteran, jaded, scarred, and Rich was fresh into the games industry. And we ended up working together for a couple of years on something called the Games Labs project. Now I know a lot of people from that project, so when that came to the end, and at the end was a big show, the first ever Wales Games Development Show. It was the first time Welsh Government could really see the games industry. Me and Rich decided we kind of liked each other, and we enjoyed working together. So Rich is a programmer and game designer by trade. I'm an artist and he's a designer by trade, so our skills complement each other. So we decided to try to make a games company because that would be easy and take over the world, you know. So that's what we'll be doing, really.
Yeah, not really much to add to that one, to be fair. We had an interesting start, as I say, trying to set up in Wales, which obviously has a games industry, but it's very sporadic, you know, over the years. So we were kind of trying to find our place, and I say I'm an import, as you might have guessed. I always say Di is Welsh enough for the both of us, so down the way. So I pretty much wanted to stay in Cardiff. I love the city. I came up for uni, didn't really want to move out of Wales. Most games jobs were over in Guildford and all that sort of jazz. So me, Di, and then deciding let's try something was really the beginning of it all.
So, and then it was easy then, we released loads of games, so we, at the moment, so I suppose, since 2012, we've released 24 console games. If you include our first year, it's 36 games, because we did loads of small, we reached together literally, did lots of little throwaway things to learn how to do stuff. But it's really prolific, and people are always surprised how small our team is, the amount of work we've done, and then we've done it by collaboration. So some of you might know us for Made Scare first-person horror game that was on Xbox Games ago, a couple of years ago. Some people know us for the interactive movies we've made. So we've made in 2020 we had 3, and now we have 14 and 3 more productions. So we've really kind of scaled that up again by collaborating outside the company. So you know that's been our big strength really, is the collaboration.
You mentioned there about, you know, people surprised about the size of the team. That was exactly when I was researching you. I thought it was a much bigger company than what it was. I mean, how have you managed to sort of keep yourself motivated and, you know, keep a good work schedule, producing so many games over so many years?
Yeah, it's a tough one, Rich.
Yeah, that's a fun one. A lot of the time it's optimization. As I say, I come from a tech background, so pipeline is key to having a successful kind of games company. So knowing kind of where to start and where to end, and all the problems that may come in between all of that. What we've kind of done over the years is actually really made sure that the way we design the games is we've always got a kind of end game and goal. So rather than just kind of go, right, we'll just develop this for the next 10 years, and by that time, you know, you've gone from PS3 to PS4 to PS5 to PS6. You know, we could be going forever and forever and never actually end up releasing anything. So one of the key ways we've done is, one, just improving our pipeline all the time. Like, we've never stopped as a company. Even when we started off, Angry Birds was the big thing. I think there is some Angry Birds still around these days, but everything moves on really, really fast at the game stream. We've been really good at keeping up with the tech and keeping up with the people. And like Di mentioned as well, collaborating with some really cool companies and some really interesting ideas. There's a few here, Sarah in the back from Goodgate. We've actually collaborated on many things in terms of movies where there may be skills that we don't have in the company, but we want to try and work with other companies to make stuff. So Goodgate do a really great job at the interactive movies we make. So we've collaborated with them many, many times and made some really cool stuff. So collaboration and keeping up with the tech pretty much.
Yeah, so I come from an art background, so I'm used to having a portfolio, and essentially I could do a painting for myself that nobody wants, and then I knew I was to do a painting for somebody to sell it. So the reality of what we did creatively was, don't be afraid to fail. So we talk about percentages, some percentage, we literally don't care if it's 90% or 10%, we're going to make stuff. And then we found communities and people have come with us, and like our fans are not in Wales, by the way, they're all around the world, which blows our mind when people find us. It literally does. It's so humbling when somebody, you know, we were in GDC a few months ago, and there was a queue of people coming to see us, but some were for Made Scare, some were for 5 Dates, some were for, you know, they all have a different entry where they've discovered us. And like an indie band, those who were with us back from our first console game, Master Reboot on PS3, there's some people who've been with us. I can see Taylor over there, one of our biggest fans, right? She's been with us as a fan since PS3, and she came to find us in a show in London, and so some people have been with us for the entire journey, and some people only just found our last game and next discovered us that way. So that continues, but we haven't been afraid to make things, come up with an idea, execute fast and fail fast, and then go again. And we don't work on one thing, by the way. We work on so many things overlapping. We are not make one, release it, go again. We've always layered with whatever team that we have at that time and resources.
You mentioned before about, Angry Birds was that when you started. How has sort of game making changed since you started out?
Yeah, that's a big one. So when we started out, it was, as I say, it was the kind of advent of the iOS time. So it was where you could kind of, I always remember when we started, it was like the beer mat apps and the press a button and make £1,000 sort of apps, when everything was really kind of up and coming. Everyone was saying mobile, mobile, mobile. Actually, when I was doing a bit of research the other day, I was looking at some of the old slides we did for a presentation we did back in 2013, and it was funny, it was talking about the advent of how the mobile market's going to overtake everything. And what we realised pretty fast in the mobile market was it's bloody hard to make any money because it's devalued. So what we found was we couldn't sell games on the mobile market. We could take 2 years making it and no one wanted to buy it, we weren't marketing the right way, etc. So what we've actually had to do over the years is evolve fast. And we've always had RA on PlayStation and Xbox and the consoles. So our first job, and not saying it's a bad job, but me and Di got to go all over the world pretty much. So we travelled everything from Tokyo Game Show to GDC San Francisco, Gamescom Cologne, and just really what we were doing was kind of making connections with people and saying, look guys, we may be a smaller studio in Wales at the moment, but will you give us PS3 to develop on, or will you give us an Xbox to develop on? And really, the early stages were just making those relationships so we could get past those gatekeepers and onto the market.
Just to let you know as well, we didn't start with loads of money. So we had, I always say £3,000, it was actually £2,500 we had the bank account together from a little job we did together. And that was all we had. So what we did, most people think the reason they're not successful is because they haven't got the money to make the thing. So what we did was make the thing we could afford with the money. We never paid ourselves, by the way. It would always be whoever. At that time, we didn't really have a team. It was like people literally doing stuff, graduates who had no experience. I could see a few in the room, in with us at that time. So what we did was, can we make a game for 2,500 and make back that money? I mean, it was literally gambling up. Obviously now we've made games, we've sold millions of games and turned over millions of thing, right? But we started by not waiting for somebody, waiting for that grant or waiting for that thing to happen. Even though we're still filling in grant forms, by the way, and I can see Hugh Marshall's in the room. He was the digital commissioner for S4C, and he was the one who backed Master Reboot, the first ever Welsh language console game was released on PlayStation. So along the way, we've still tapped into all that, but we didn't wait. We've executed with what we have rather than thinking we're not successful because we haven't got that facility, and that's been our way really.
What was the little job that you had?
It was a really crap. What was it? It's a Christmas.
It's a Christmas, yeah. It was like a really crap elf yourself.
So you've got to Google kitten calculator. Right? So Google kitten calculator. It's not that wasn't it? So the first thing me and Rich made together was, the idea was, I came from a background, AAA background, where I started my dream job in '95 for a company that became, there for the birth of Tomb Raider, and became Eidos Interactive. So I didn't really know I was an indie, because they were hiring a young guy to go in a room with a programmer and make stuff. It was literally that, we weren't told what to make, we just make stuff. Oh, should we make a football game? Should we make a racing game? So, it's become more sophisticated now, but that's what the starting point of that was really. So when it comes to me and Rich starting a business together, we had the new way of publishing digital. We'd all sort of, people starting to download stuff and not go to the shop to buy stuff, which meant we didn't have to go and talk to the original, the existing gatekeepers. So the first thing, because no one gave us any consoles at that time, it was only iOS and Android that we could do. So we said, let's make an app together, but rather than fall into the trap, we're going to make something that's going to change the world and it's going to make us millions. I said, Rich, say something to me, and he said 2 words, kitten calculator. And I said to him, it sounds awful, let's make it. So then I visualised it, Rich programmed it, and we released it on the App Store within literally 2-3 weeks. The point of that we were really frustrated when he downloaded it. When
Yes,
it
he
was
did
in the
well.
less,
He did well.
then he's not there. It didn't make us a lot of money, he had a lot of downloads, but the point was we learned how to self-publish for the first time. You know, oh, we need a trailer, you know, so I'll do the trailer, you know, we need that. Rich, you fill in this. Oh, you're going to have to have a Twitter handle. Oh, I don't want to do Twitter, which we still don't do Twitter. But so essentially what we did is learn how to publish, not by waiting for somebody to give us something or spend 3 years to make something to learn. That's how we did it, by making stuff and then building our label, and then the team around us, you know, and they were all graduates now. They're a team that can compete with some of the best in the world, which is mind-blowing. Consider when they started, they literally were unhireable. You know, they wouldn't have been hired. So some of that team have been with us for 11 years from the beginning, which is, again, my first 15 years in the game industry, I was made redundant 4 times, by the way, right? And I had like 3 number 1s and all this, right? So the games industry is ruthless, right? To think that we've created a company together where literally half our team have been with us for 10 years, and then the other half have been with us for 8. It blows my mind, the retention that we've done. So the family vibe that we've got going on with that, and I suppose the openness of us to collaborate has been key to that.
Yeah, that's especially a big thing. You know, you hear so much about retention in the industry at the minute as well. So the fact that you managed to foster that is a really big coup and a good thing for you to sort of shout about as well. Moving back to the games that you make, what you focus on and champion is the FMV genre. And that hasn't always had the best reputation, so why did you choose FMV?
Why don't you start? Oh, yeah.
FMV is quite an interesting one for us. So it's a couple of ways we got into it, really. One thing was, to be honest, there's a great film and TV industry in Wales. So we were looking at kind of what was around us and what already exists. You know, as I say, I used to work with a company called Challanges who did like Super Ted and that back in the day. So there's a lot of animation side of things which we knew were about. And thinking, okay, well, how can we kind of utilize some of the stuff that is around us to create games? And quite fortuitously, in Gamescom Cologne, in a Humble Bundle buy, I think it was, back in the day, we met a company who were looking to create an FMV game. So they were a company called Splendid at the time, and they were trying to create a game called The Bunker. They could film stuff, but they had no idea how to put 2 things together. Quite fortuitously, we knew how to put stuff together, and we knew how to publish. So 2 things ended up hand in hand. We ended up creating our first FMV game, which was The Bunker. So it was a real risk, to be honest with you. We had just come off the back of kind of her story, so we knew there was kind of a flavour for FMV at the time. However, we didn't know if there was going to be a market for it, especially not at some of the costs of how much an FMV costs to do. So what we did was try out with The Bunker, did incredibly well. A lot of people we talked to this day actually use The Bunker as a start point, saying, I played The Bunker back in the day and that's how I've kind of got addicted into FMVs over the years. But that was really the way we kind of started, and The Bunker proved a point to us. So we started to go around trying to find other different FMVs all over the world. Put on one hand how many we actually found, because not many people were making FMVs, because exactly the same thing. Can they make money? What are they going to do, and all that sort of jazz. So we kind of worked with a couple of collaborators, with a couple of companies like that, and then we started thinking, right, we've got to make it ourselves. So that's kind of where our real strength came in, and I think it was 2020 actually the first one. So again with Sarah and Ukie, so we did a game called The Complex. So we had to create a bit of tech alongside that, which is called Wisp, which kind of lets people from non-gaming backgrounds create interactive movies. And from there on, was it 10 interactive movies now we're on?
It's actually 14.
14, there we go, yeah, so 14. And with the Isle of Tide Hotel coming out in August, which you should definitely buy as well.
Yes.
So, there you go.
Please don't. So the reality, what we didn't realise, when we're games makers, it's about medium, forget about medium, you call it FMV. So when I started in '95, it was Mega Drive, there was no PlayStation. So obviously my skills then as an artist were very different over the years. You know, it was pixel pusher to a 3D artist to whatever, right? So that meant that changes what you make as a video game, the medium changes. So for us, we were making story-based games anyway. So when we met people who wanted to tell a story in film, but a non-linear story, hey, that's what we do. We tell non-linear stories. So our skills complemented that then, and that's but the reality for us, we thought we bumped into some Swiss filmmakers in GDC with The Bunker. We were showing The Bunker, and we saw another thing that looked like a film, and we talked to them, and it was The Late Shift, and they'd already financed it, but they didn't know, basically knew nothing about the games industry, and we said, look, if you work with us, we'll re-engineer, we'll gamify it, and we think it should be on the gaming consoles. It's ended up being the most downloaded interactive movie in the world, by the way, right? So they love us, but so then we met a husband and wife team and made the Shapeshifter Detective. They used to make basically box games, Murder Mystery Nights, right? And then we met them and they'd already made something, then we made something together and that was cool, called Shapeshifting Detective. But what happened is that these are people we were kind of meeting by going around events, you know, actively trying to find. So we realised there weren't that many people in the scheme of things that saw any value in interactive movies. If you interact, it's a game, so you should go on a game platform, regardless if it's a film, a 2D thing, a 3D thing, you know. So what happened then, me and Rich decided we didn't know the word that was this, but we were going to commission things. We literally reinvested, the money we reinvested in our team and the titles, we decided we were going to actually make films happen. And with Goodgate, we managed to persuade a guy called John Armour, who's the CEO of Goodgate, and Sarah's been working, she's producer and head of, what's your full title, Sarah, so don't get it wrong? Head of production. So we managed to persuade them they should really get into this, but what we saw was not just the creative opportunity. The film industry doesn't have the indie games model, so they don't have that revenue stream that we can have. So we sold not just a creative thing, but a different way of making money, essentially. So that's evolved now from 3 titles, which we kind of, by meeting people, by getting out there, to the next sort of level that we've made happen. So that's been the change, and that's why it's accelerated.
And how do you think FMV has evolved over the years? I mean, you don't have to go all the way back to the 90s. I think 90s to now, how has it evolved?
It's always tech-led. So, I mean, essentially, back in the 90s, it's always Night Traps mentioned. I never played that, I'm not going to lie, I wasn't a fan. I mean, so, I mean, but the reality of it is that now the technology is right, we can handle big video files, even the way that the WISP program we use, which makes sort of clever underneath scripts, which drives the edit of the films, right? So tech has allowed that to, I suppose, evolve.
Yeah, I don't really have a huge amount to add to that one, but
so with that at the moment, people like ourselves, Sam Barlow, Flavorworks guys, I mean, there's not a lot of people doing it, but we've been the most prolific and the most experimental, I suppose. We've really tried lots of different genres, different mechanics, and got to more platforms, I suppose.
Now, if people coming to you for pitches, what kind of things are you looking for? Maybe like 3 things or something like that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. When we look for people who come to us, a lot of the time it's actually personality. So it's the type of person who comes to us and how they pitch themselves alongside the game. So the indie, you guys probably heard the indie apocalypse and all that sort of jazz lately and everything like that. The world always moves on. Indie was a lot different. Our early days were Indie Game the movie, you know, we're hearing about the big wins and all that, and the world moves on. It doesn't mean it's impossible, it just changes a lot. But what doesn't change over the years, and that's something key to us, and it's been key to us all these years, is personality. Because if you cannot work with the company who's pitching you a game, or the person who's pitching you a game, it's kind of a pointless endeavour anyway. If you've got the best idea in the world or the best thing in the world, if you can't actually work with that person or work with that team, it's a pointless endeavour. So I would say all 3 of those questions is actually, for me, is the person rather than the actual pitch.
Yeah, we're unusual. That normally we're not quite the big evil publisher yet, because we actually still make games. So when we talk to developers, we're still talking to them as games developers, but we know how to navigate to actually try to make money and navigate how to self-publish and market whatever. But essentially, the people on our label, some of them have been with us for like 8 years. So I mean, the digital self is ambiguous. So if we didn't have good relationships, that would fall apart. So we've been lucky to keep relationships good with people, I suppose. So you know, you're naturally going to fall out with some people along the way, but we've been very good at, I suppose, being honest and open and approachable. So that's been one of our strengths as well, I suppose.
Wonderful. And you were at GDC this year, and there's a few here that I also know was on the GDC Welsh stand. What reception have you received? And I don't know if you can speak in more generally, Welsh game developers overseas, how are they generally respond?
So I mean, me and Rich, so we are part of the reason why that, I'm proud to say that, right, but there's other Welsh government and CAF being like, Kath's been from Welsh Gov Creative Wales, has been like a big champion of us over the years in the games industry. So I mean, the work they've done has been amazing. But literally, me and Rich went on a trade mission was nothing to do with games. It just was happened to be happening at the same time as GDC. And this was back in, I think it was 2013, 14 maybe. And we saw Welsh Government at the play, said, there's this trade mission going to San Francisco. So we went on it, but not to go on any of the stuff they wanted. And then we said, right, we don't want to do that. We're going to go over here. Is that right? And they go, no, you've got to do some of the stuff. So we did some of the stuff, and then we went off to GDC, and they said, why are you going over there? Well, this is like our business. This is where we need to be. So then Welsh Gov listened, people like Kath and Paul Osbert-Eston, and they shifted the focus of what our trade mission is. Now it's become obviously a games trade mission. And then we had no stand, literally just walking around the room. Then we had like a bit of a stand on somebody else's stand. And now it's like literally this year. It was like, oh my God. It was like, we were next to Epic, the mothership, and we didn't look out the place to me. The stand was amazing, the location and the amount of Welsh game devs on it. So for me and Rich to go from 2014 to where we are, it's like such, it's a visual movement. And I suppose Welsh devs, let's be honest, right? They were giving away free beer and stuff on their base, so we were quite a popular stand.
Yeah, for anyone who was at GDC, it was a massive stand. It was well over an hour just on the one bit, just going round, and everybody was talking and one bit of chatting. It was such a good atmosphere as well. So yeah, it was definitely a really good one at GDC. I'm thinking about being based in Wales. What are the benefits of being based in Wales?
Give us to the
The
guy from
English,
there.
yeah, the English.
Actually, one of the biggest benefits is, and Kath, sorry, you're right there, but biggest benefits is Kath. Honestly, having actual access to a government representative who can actually do stuff and cares is unbelievable. I mean, you know, you look at London, you look at that, you know, you try and talk to a minister in London or try and talk to that. Kath pretty much can get anything done anyway, and if she can't get it done, she can get links to us or talk to us. We can change the games industry in Wales. It is something they'll listen to us and they understand. So that's one of the brilliant things about being in Wales. We're not just like, oh yeah, we'll hear that on the board somewhere, we'll do a survey, and then maybe in 18 years' time we'll change something of that sort of thing. We can actually change stuff as companies in Wales. So it's the great thing about being a smaller industry in a smaller country is the fact we do actually punch well above our weight, and we've got people who listen and people who care. So that's my main one.
Yeah, and well, you know, to be honest, I watched Harry Styles a couple of days ago in Pring, and I was cracking, you know. So I mean, we got a good venue, you know, we got a great stadium, and then tonight I was a little bit late because I live in the Rhondda, so I come from like a really pretty part of the valleys with the Brecon Beacons and whatever. So I mean, you know, if you want a bit of city or a bit of outdoors, it's great as well for I suppose for your mental health as well, be it working in Wales, you know.
The Welsh countryside is absolutely beautiful, so you do get that benefit at least. And the final question is, what's next for Wales Interactive?
Shall I start this one? Are you finishing?
Right, well, one, the Isle Tide Hotel are going to kill me. The Isle Tide Hotel is out in August, so that's our next FMV game. So that's, again, a mix of interactive and FMV, so we're still going to be doing a lot more FMVs. The other one for us, which is really cool, and actually hearing about some of the other talks and how community building and how development building and that sort of things, we are always trying new stuff as a company. So we actually made a game called Scare Ritual, so that's in early access at the moment on Steam. Going really well, interesting for us because it's our first multiplayer game, so trying to build a community, getting compared to Call of Duty, always a fun one, but because our team's 16, not 600. But we're always trying to punch above our weight, so we'll just be doing cool stuff. That's what I say. So more interactive movies, more stuff in horror, more stuff just generally. That's the way we're working.
So we've got at the moment 10 scripts. So at the moment we've 40 pitched to us, and they're all at different stages. So a new batch we go into production for the interactive movies. Internally then, because we always make our own stuff, Scare Ritual overlap, maybe Scare 2 and something else. Which we haven't designed yet, to be rich, so we don't know what that is. But I mean, so for us, we've got a plan so far in. So me and Rich is meeting today online because we were in different parts of Wales. It was 25 miles where we went through what's happening in the next year and what's happening in the next 3 years. So we plan roughly stuff that could happen if things happen. And it's not rigid, but it just means then we can't just look 6 months ahead or a year ahead. We got to have a longer vision, because we got more runway now, and then because we're a publisher, having one thing out every 3 years is not good enough. We can publish 4 or 5 years if there's enough stuff, you know what I mean? But essentially as well, we are generating that content, so whatever happens, we'll always have content to publish, regardless if people want to work with us or not.
Thank you so much. Has anybody got any questions? Yes.
So you just spoiled my question. I was going to ask when is kit calculator being turned.
We're doing kit and calculator too. I like to do
It's on YouTube. I was just looking forward.
Really, it's still on YouTube. Really.
Have you never done it as an Easter egg in one of the games?
No, not yet. Actually, we need to.
I guess my question is Sam Barlow. So, like, what impact has Sam Barlow had in your kind of world? You know, immortality, etc. Just
honestly, we were on the same stands as Sam, so we were doing challanges at the time, right? So we were Nintendo decided when everybody else was supporting indies, they weren't. So they had to panic and pick somebody. So we were one of the 10 indies. This is Wii U, by the way, not Switch. So the byproduct of that was we ended up on Nintendo stands with Solaxia, one of our narrative games around the world, next to like our games next to Mario, which has blew my mind, right? But anyway, so some of the indie stands we were on, Sam Barlow would be there with this little sort of FMV thing that nobody cared about, right? It was always empty and nobody on the stand, by the way. So Soul Action led us to the bunker. So we kind of were making the bunker at the same time as her story.
that's what you see.
Yeah, so that's the connection. So, like, we've only, I think we've met him once, but we haven't really had a conversation. So his journey is very different. He's on that cycle of it, you know, the 2-3 year development of making stuff. With us, we are on we are doing 4 or 5 things at the same time. So our take on it's very different. It's as if, you know, imagine if you went to Netflix and there's only 3 films on there. That wouldn't be a thing. So interactive movies have never been a thing because no one's made a concerted effort to fill the tab with them, to digest them so people know they're a thing. You know, they can never be a thing if there's not enough of them. So because of like Rich said, the fact that we're in an area where people, you know, hired by Netflix to film Netflix shows in Wales and Disney Plus shows, you know, Willow and Doctor Who and whatever. So us tapping into that means that's why we can ramp up. So we ain't got the budgets, but the people who do it are professional filmmakers, whereas going back to what there was in the 90s, that was wannabe filmmakers working in the games industry. We are working with people whose jobs it is to make film. So even at the lower budget, that's why the acting's better, you know, that's why the production values are better, because we are working with people who are experts in their area. So that's why then with all these different experimenting moves. But the good thing for us is like Immortality is a good example. That only shines a light. And if you've played that, we have drag up sales because if you like one film, there's not that many to choose from. So that means we feed each other at the moment until the big guys decide it's a thing and they move in. Do you know? But at the moment, nobody has. So we'll continue while we can.
Thank you.
So just following on from that question, is it also, as games, you know, sometimes people look down on it as a creative art, as a medium, and especially perhaps from film, and do you think people from film and music, they're not looking down on games quite as much now?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm sure a lot of you devs here as well, especially, you know, have had the thing games with the kids, you know, or, you know, especially people who don't really know the games industry, like last thing they played was Tetris, etc., etc. Film, we get another layer of that when we're doing interactive movies, because it's like, okay, is this a film thing? Is this a games thing? Is it where does it fit in the middle? Who's it for? And all that sort of jazz. Bandersnatch, for all its wins and losses, actually did a really good job in terms of getting interactive movies back out there onto the bigger stages. So that was a really, really good one for us. You mentioned Sam Barlow and all that. As interactive movies, we're not something where we'd like to shun it away. You know, if every single person in this room made an interactive movie, that would probably still only be 50 of them coming out this year. You know, we're by no means a saturated industry. So it's the more people making them and the bigger people getting into it, and we do know some really, really big companies which are getting into interactive movies, so expect to see some very large ones, maybe not with us, but just generally in the future. It's something where it is changing. They'll never replace linear film, as we know, but for some reason people kind of think this has to be one or the other. They'll never replace that. It's just a different way of experiencing medium. And what you might see in the future is possibly like a 9-episode TV show, and you might get an interactive episode as well. Or you might get a tie-in with an interactive piece on a film. Or you might get a singular interactive piece on its own, and then a director's cut from that interactive piece. There's a lot of ways interactive's kind of building in and within everything. So expect to see a lot more of that over the next kind of 10 years or so. It just takes people a bit of time to catch up with it all, really.
Yeah, so we get a lot of snobbery, and like I said, we're in between two things, so we get it from both ways. Sarah from Good Gate, right, we worked on a few things, but 5 Dates, we worked on some really good stuff today. 5 Dates, right, is probably one of the best rom-coms, right? And you know, in film, rom-coms well placed. So when we were making an interactive rom-com for PlayStation, Xbox, you know, how mad is that? Why would you do that, you know? But the acting, the performances, the writing, oh my God, it was all done in lockdown through Zoom, right? This, as a piece of work, it was really, again, overlooked, I suppose, because again of the snobbery of, you know, this is not a film, this is not a game. So we won't judge it as a game, and we won't judge it as a film. So that's what we get a lot. But we are changing. We have won awards for our stuff, by the way, BAFTAs and whatever. But it's been hard to change the mindset. So one thing Sam Barlow has done really well, he's won the spin of his things, but it's because when you promote, do you know the amount of stuff we've got to promote, right? His run-up is 3 years for Immortality. I mean, in 3 years we've released, I think it's 15 titles. I mean, we're on a different energy of promotion, so we can't have that luxury of the run-up because it's the way that we are doing it, right? Just slightly different. But some of them are breaking through, and some of them will win different film awards, film festival awards, whatever. We've even got a category now in the Carmarthen Film Festival. They made for us, interactive. Weirdly, we've won it twice. But, you know, there's only our films in there, but I mean...
How many times have you lost?
Strange,
We've
never lost. Yeah. And somebody tapped me and goes, I wonder if you're going to win. I'm thinking, yeah, we are going to win. I don't know which one. But the point is, we've had to lobby that. Everything we're doing is lobbying. It's not like just... If you... advice for any games developers up there, if you think it's going to happen and people are going to come to you, forget it. It's about initiative. It's about having a plan B, C, and E. So I mean, I did a talk here the other week with the Indie Labs thing, and 3 things will happen when you release a game. Either it'll sell not very well, or it might sell all right, or it might do really well. The last 2 things I said are less likely to happen. So if you plan to failure, then it's easier then to sort of first grasp the fact, oh my God, this could fail, it's got more chance of failing, and understand what your follow-up play is to that if that thing happens. If it does sell well, happy days, you aren't going to worry so much of you, but you're planning to the most likely outcome, which it probably won't do what you expect to do.
Wonderful. And then we've got any more questions? Yep.
I'm not familiar with 100% of your library.
Well, you're on 24.
I know, shameful. Do you guys think, obviously you mainly focus on live action, have you done animation or do you consider animation at all for future games?
Yeah, it's come up quite a few times actually, especially looking at kind of kids stuff as well. So we've had quite a few kids projects pitched to us for interactive kind of animation, or interactive 3D animation, 2D animation. To be honest, we can do anything. It's just finding the right slot for it. So we've had everything from theatre plays to serious kind of like one was about a World War II bomber, which is just like that's more of a factual drama sort of thing, all the way down. It just depends. The great thing about the way we make interactive movies is the interactivity is just the medium. So we teach people as we go. You know, here's how to create a branching narrative. Here's how to do it. You can do it whatever you want. If you want to, put it on a toaster, if we got the tech, we'll do it. Sort of thing.
Funny thing, I just saw John Rennie from Cloth Cat, so the animation, they make lots of animated stuff. So yes, you take the medium of that. It's really what we're doing is telling non-linear stories. Mm-hmm. If you take the visual out, you've still got an interactive book, right? So however you want to visualize that, sometimes you could picture something without the visual, perhaps it's just an audio thing, and that is the hook of it. So it's really about non-linear storytelling, that stuff is. But just to reiterate, a lot of people know us for our first person, the things that look like video games, the game engine stuff, so like I said, it depends what your entry level is, but we literally made so many different genres of things and shapes and sizes, somebody involved.
I think we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending, and thank you so much to Darren.